You ever walk into a room and suddenly stop in your tracks because something doesn't smell right? And I don't mean bad like spoiled milk or garbage. I'm talking about a smell that doesn't belong, that feels out of place, that hits your senses and sends a shiver down your spine. That's your instinct kicking in, telling you something is off. And if you ignore that instinct, you might miss the very thing trying to warn you. Because, in the world of spiritual warfare, witches don't always announce themselves, they leave traces, signs, and yes, smells. Nasty, unnatural smells that tell you something dark is near. The first one is the stench of sulfur. It's sharp, metallic, almost like a struck match but heavier, more suffocating. This is one of the most common smells linked to demonic or occult activity. It doesn't drift in from outside. It appears suddenly, hanging in the air like a warning. And here's the truth when you smell it. It's not just your nose reacting. Your spirit is on high alert because sulfur is often connected to unclean, oppressive presences. That smell is not random, it's intentional. Then there's the rancid odor of decaying flesh. You'll catch it in a place where there's no logical reason for it. No dead animal, no spoiled food. It's the kind of smell that makes you want to cover your face, but it's not just about disgust. In witchcraft and dark rituals, decay represents spiritual death. That smell is meant to weaken you, to draw your focus toward fear, to disrupt your peace. The moment you notice it, don't dismiss it. Ask yourself why it's there and what it's trying to signal. Another is the smell of burnt hair or feathers. It's distinct, acrid, and clings to the air in a way you can't escape. Witches often use burning in their rituals hair, feathers, even herbs, to send curses, hexes, or spiritual distractions. The smell lingers because it's meant to attach itself to your memory, to make you uneasy even after it's gone. It's psychological warfare in scent form, and if you sense it without explanation, know that someone is trying to reach you spiritually in a way that bypasses logic. Most people think danger only announces itself through sight or sound, but that's not true. Your body was designed to pick up threats in ways you don't even realize, and one of the most underestimated warning systems you have is your sense of smell. It's primal. It goes straight to your brain before you have time to think. When a smell hits you and feels wrong, that's not just your imagination. That's your survival instinct sounding the alarm. In the physical world, it might mean smoke from a fire or gas leaking in your home. But in the spiritual world, an unnatural smell can be the first and only sign you'll get before something tries to invade your space. Witches, dark practitioners, and those dabbling in occult rituals know this. They don't always want to be seen or heard, so they leave behind an energy one you can smell before you can see. And if you ignore it, you miss the warning. When you walk into a room and the air feels heavy with a scent that doesn't belong, don't brush it off or tell yourself you're overreacting. That scent is often a signal, a message meant to alert you that something is already in motion around you. Your nose isn't just smelling, it's discerning, it's protecting, and it's telling you to pay attention right now. There's a reason sulfur has been associated with hell, demons, and unclean spirits for centuries. It's not just a bad smell. It's a physical manifestation of something that does not belong in your environment. When that sharp, metallic, match-like scent suddenly fills the air and there's no candle, no fire, no chemical to explain it, that's not random. That's intrusion. It's a marker left behind by something that wants to intimidate you, unsettle you, and let you know it's there without revealing itself fully. I've walked into spaces where that smell hit me like a wall, and I knew instantly that what I was dealing with wasn't physical, it was spiritual. Sulfur doesn't just carry an odor. It carries weight, pressure, an invisible heaviness that presses on your chest and makes the room feel smaller. This is why you can't dismiss it as just a weird smell. It's a signal of an unclean presence trying to breach your space, and if you catch it, you've already been given a warning most people never notice until it's too late. There's a certain smell that can stop you cold, the rancid, sickening stench of decay. It's heavy, it clings to the air, and it wraps itself around you in a way that makes you want to back away instantly. We're wired to react to it because, in the physical world, it means something has died. But what most people don't realize is that in the spiritual realm, that same smell is not always tied to physical death. It can be the stench of something dying in the spirit. In witchcraft and in darker forms of occult practice, this smell is used deliberately. It's not random, it's not accidental, and it's not harmless. Decay is a symbol, an announcement of corruption, of life being drained from something or someone. And when you smell it without a logical, physical source, you are stepping into an environment that has been tampered with. Think about how unsettling it is to smell rotting flesh in a place where it's impossible for it to exist. There's no animal nearby, no spoiled food, no reason for it to linger, and yet it's there, cutting into your senses like a knife. This is one of the enemy's most primal tactics, using the smell of decay to trigger a deep, instinctive fear inside you. It makes you feel vulnerable. It plants the thought that something is wrong and you can't see it. That's psychological warfare, and it's designed to break your spiritual composure before you even realize you're under attack. In some ritual work, witches and dark practitioners will intentionally invoke this odor as part of a curse. They believe it represents the death of peace, the death of health, the death of hope. It's not just meant to repulse you. It's meant to seep into your thoughts and convince you you're already losing before the real fight begins. And here's where the danger lies. If you let that smell overpower your mind, you begin to feel defeated without a single blow being struck. That's why awareness is so critical. The moment your senses pick it up, you have to stand your ground. You cannot allow your fear to give power to what's trying to weaken you. There's also a deeper spiritual reason for this smell's power. In scripture, and in many spiritual traditions, decay is seen as the opposite of life, the opposite of renewal. Where there is decay, there is absence of light, absence of growth, absence of God's life, giving presence. When the smell of decay shows up out of nowhere, it's often because something has been invited into that space that thrives in lifelessness. And here's what they won't tell you sometimes: it's not about you personally. Sometimes it's about the place you're in. Maybe the location has been marked. Maybe it has been the site of rituals. Maybe it's carrying the residue of past spiritual activity. You're not just smelling something in the air. You're smelling the history of that space, the imprint of what's been done there. When you breathe in that rancid odor, your body reacts instinctively. You wrinkle your nose, your stomach tightens, maybe your heart rate spikes. That's your physical survival system trying to get you to leave, but your spiritual survival system is speaking too if you know how to listen. It's saying, this is not right, this is not safe, this is not of God, and you have a choice in that moment. You can ignore it, tell yourself it's nothing, try to rationalize it away, or you can take it seriously and act. Acting doesn't always mean running. Sometimes it means confronting it. It means speaking life into the air that reeks of death. It means declaring that whatever has been sent, whatever has been conjured, whatever has been loosed into that space has no right to remain. I've seen people ignore that smell only to experience a sudden series of misfortunes, illnesses, or emotional breakdowns in the days that followed. And when they finally connected the dots, they realized that the smell of decay was their first and only warning. The enemy had already begun the work, but they didn't see it for what it was. You have to understand witchcraft doesn't always come with flashing lights and obvious signs. Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it's just a lingering odor that seems out of place, but it's the tip of a spiritual iceberg that's far bigger and far more dangerous than what you can see. In the natural world, decay attracts scavengers, creatures that feed off what's already dead or dying. In the spiritual world, it works the same way. That smell can draw in more darkness, more oppression, because it signals an environment where life and light have been weakened. It's a magnet for more of the same. That's why it's so important to respond immediately. If you allow it to stay, you allow the energy that created it to anchor itself deeper into your space and your life. The unsettling truth is, some people become so used to spiritual decay that they no longer notice the smell. They've been living under it for so long that their senses have adapted. And that's exactly where the enemy wants you, numb, desensitized, unable to recognize that you're breathing in corruption every single day. You have to keep your discernment sharp, your senses trained, so that even the faintest whiff of that rancid odor makes you stop and question. Because here's the reality. If you catch that smell and act, you can disrupt what's being done before it fully takes hold. But if you dismiss it, if you let it slide, you're essentially leaving the door open and inviting more in. In my experience, people who are spiritually aware will treat that odor like a siren. It doesn't matter if it lasts 3 seconds or 30 minutes. If it shows up, they treat it as urgent. They cleanse their space. They pray over it. They speak life where something is trying to bring death. The smell of decay is not just unpleasant, it's prophetic. It's telling you something about the spiritual state of your environment. And when it appears without explanation, it's not just air molecules. It's a message, a challenge, a line being drawn. You either rise up and confront it, or you let it spread until it becomes the atmosphere you live in every day. That's why you can never afford to ignore it. The moment you sense it, you're already in the middle of something bigger than you think. Your response right then could determine whether it stops at the threshold or moves deeper into your life. And you never, ever want to find out what happens when it's allowed to settle in. There's a smell that once you experience it, you'll never forget, burnt hair or burnt feathers. It's sharp, acrid, almost oily in the way it clings to the air, and it has a way of sticking in your mind long after it's gone. In everyday life, you might smell it when something accidentally hits a hot stove or a strand of hair gets too close to a flame. But when you catch that smell and there's no fire, no heat source, no reason for it to be there, you need to understand you've just walked into the residue of something ritualistic. In witchcraft and dark spiritual practices, burning is not random, it's intentional. Hair, feathers, herbs. These are often set aflame in ceremonies meant to send curses, seal spells, or bind someone's spirit. And the smell is not just a byproduct, it's part of the ritual itself. That burnt scent lingers because it's meant to. It's designed to attach itself to your memory, to crawl into the corners of your mind, so that even hours later, you still feel uneasy. That's no accident. It's a form of psychological anchoring, tying the memory of that smell to an atmosphere of fear, unrest, or oppression. The person sending it knows that long after the smoke is gone, the thought of it will still make you tense, will still make you second, guess your safety. That's how they win small battles, by keeping you on edge, distracted, and spiritually unsettled. Hair and feathers have deep symbolic meaning in many traditions. Hair represents identity, covering, and personal power. Feathers often symbolize freedom, movement, and spirit. Burning them in a ritual is a statement. It's about consuming what they represent, breaking it down to ash, and sending that energy toward a specific target. If you are the target, that smell is not just unpleasant, it's a calling card. It's a message saying, "We've done the work, now you feel it." And if you brush it off, you're ignoring a very direct sign of an active spiritual attack. You need to understand that in the spiritual realm, smell is one of the most invasive ways to reach you. You can close your eyes, you can block your ears, but you can't stop breathing. They know that. That's why burnt hair or feathers used in these rituals are often left to spread through the air like invisible threads, carrying the intent of the curse with them. You inhale it without thinking, and suddenly you feel the weight of something you can't see pressing down on you. That's not superstition, that's strategy. I've stepped into spaces where that burnt scent was so strong it almost felt like it was coating my tongue. No candles, no cooking, no reason at all for it to exist, and yet the air was thick with it. In those moments you realize you're not dealing with a smell, you're dealing with a presence. The ritual may be over, but the aftermath is still hanging there, waiting for someone to notice. Most people don't. They dismiss it, they move on, they chalk it up to something harmless. But the ones who understand what it means know that's when you confront it, immediately. You don't wait, you don't give it time to settle. You clear it out physically and spiritually before it has a chance to do what it was sent to do. Burnt hair or feathers without explanation is never something to ignore. It's not just unpleasant, it's personal. And when you sense it, you're already in the middle of something far deeper than a bad odor. It's a trace of intentional work, and your awareness of it might be the only defense you get before that work tries to take hold. There's a certain kind of sweetness that doesn't feel sweet at all. You know what I mean, the kind of perfume or fragrance that's so overpowering, so artificial, that instead of relaxing you, it makes the air feel heavy and your chest feel tight. It's the kind of scent that feels out of place, especially in a setting where no one's wearing perfume. There are no candles burning, no flowers in the room. It hits you in a way that makes your instincts flare up, because somewhere deep down, you know it's not really there to smell good. It's there to hide something. In witchcraft and spiritual attacks, this is one of the most deceptive tools they use. They cover darkness with sweetness. They wrap something corrupt in a fragrance that's supposed to put your guard down. It's bait. It's psychological misdirection. When you walk into a space that smells overly sweet, almost sickeningly so, the intention is to mask the real spiritual atmosphere. Instead of detecting the heaviness, the tension, the spiritual residue, your senses are overwhelmed by a flood of fake pleasantness. But here's the trick. It's pleasant only for a moment. The longer you breathe it in, the more it starts to suffocate you. That's because your body knows something's off. Your mind might be saying, "Oh, it's just a strong perfume," but your spirit is whispering, "This is wrong. This doesn't belong here." I've seen this used in spaces where people wanted to cover up the after effects of a ritual. The sweetness isn't there to bless the play, it's there to disguise what's underneath. It's like painting over mold. It might look better, it might even smell better for a while, but the rot is still there growing. And in the spiritual world, that rot feeds on distraction. If you're focused on the sweetness, you're not noticing the thing that actually matters, the energy that's hiding under it. This kind of scent often appears suddenly and without source. No bottle, no spray, nothing visible, yet the air is thick with it. That's when you have to be sharp. You have to train yourself to ask, "Why is this here? Who sent this? What is this covering?" Because, in my experience, unnatural sweetness is almost always about covering, not about blessing. True sweetness in the spirit feels light, it feels freeing. This kind feels sticky, suffocating, almost like it's clinging to you. And that's exactly what it's meant to do, stick to you, so that when you leave the space, you carry a trace of it with you, like invisible residue. The danger is that most people don't see this as a threat. They associate bad smells with danger, not good ones. But that's the genius of the tactic. When the enemy wants to slip past your defenses, they don't always come in with rot and sulfur. They come in wrapped in something that seems harmless, even pleasant. That's why discernment is everything. If the sweetness feels oppressive instead of refreshing, if it fills you with unease instead of peace, that's your red flag. That's when you know you're not just smelling a fragrance. You're smelling a disguise, and whatever's behind it is counting on you not noticing until it's too late. There's a smell that feels like it comes from the ground itself, a heavy mix of rotten eggs and damp, freshly turned earth. It's thick, it lingers low, almost as if it's crawling across the floor toward you. You might think of it as just a strong sulfur smell, but this one is different. It carries with it the weight of soil, the kind that clings to graves and places where the dead have been disturbed. In witchcraft, this combination is no accident. It's a signature of graveyard rituals, of summoning energy from the dead, of pulling power from a place meant to be at rest. When you smell it without standing anywhere near a cemetery, without touching wet soil or breaking open the ground, it's not just strange, it's intentional. That stench is often the residue left after someone has worked with bones, ashes, or earth taken from burial sites. In darker practices, these materials are used to bind, to hold, to anchor curses, so they're harder to break. The smell becomes part of the curse. It's the echo of where the power was drawn from. And make no mistake, when it reaches you, it's not random. It's been sent, carried, or left behind to mark territory, to let you know that something connected to death has been invited into your space. What makes this smell so dangerous is the weight it carries in the spiritual atmosphere. Rotten eggs alone caused by sulfur can signal demonic activity. But when that's mixed with the damp, earthy scent, it means the darkness has been tethered to something physical, something with history, something with a connection to the other side. It's not just spiritual now, it's anchored in the natural world as well, which makes it harder to push back. That's why, when you sense it, the air feels heavier, your body feels slower, and even your thoughts might feel clouded. I've stepped into rooms where this smell seemed to seep from the corners, like it was coming out of the walls themselves. No open windows, no damp clothes, no spoiled food. Just a quiet, unshakable odor that made the space feel older, colder, and wrong. And here's the truth, the longer you stay in it, the more it works on you. It wears you down. It makes you tired, distracted, irritable. It's not just your body reacting to the smell, it's your spirit reacting to the atmosphere it represents. This is why you can't afford to dismiss it as just a weird smell. Rotten eggs with damp earth is not a normal, everyday combination. If it shows up without reason, it's a clear sign that something dark has been planted literally or spiritually in connection to death. And that's not something you let sit. That's something you confront the moment it appears, before it has the chance to settle deeper into your space and into you. When a smell tied to witchcraft shows up, it almost never eases its way in. It arrives suddenly, sharply, like someone flipped a switch. 1 second, the air is normal. The next, it's thick with sulfur, decay, burnt feathers, or that sickly, sweet perfume. And there's no logical source. You didn't open a door, no one walked in wearing it, nothing in the room explains it. That's when you need to understand you're not just smelling air, you're encountering an arrival. These scents don't drift in by accident, they're placed. They're sent, they're dropped into your environment as markers, as warnings, sometimes even as a form of intimidation. The suddenness is part of the tactic. It's meant to jolt you, to break your train of thought, to make you second, guess your surroundings. That's because if they can disrupt your focus, they can slip something past your defenses. In my experience, a sudden unexplained smell is never random in a spiritual sense. It's a sign that you've just crossed into the presence of something that wasn't there a moment ago. Whether it's been conjured, called, or carried in, it's now within your space, and your senses picked it up before your eyes did. I've seen people ignore this kind of sudden shift because they tell themselves, "It'll pass," or "I'm imagining it," but that's exactly how you miss the warning. Think about it. Your body reacts instantly to smoke from a fire, even before you see the flames, because your survival instincts are trained to detect danger through smell. The spiritual world works the same way. Your spirit will detect a shift in the atmosphere long before your mind processes it, and it will send that signal through your senses. And here's the part most people miss. Just because the smell fades quickly doesn't mean the danger has left. Sometimes the scent is only there long enough to announce the presence. Once it's marked the space, it can disappear completely, leaving you thinking it's gone when in reality it's still operating silently. That's why sudden, unexplained odors aren't something to dismiss. They're something to investigate, to confront, and to respond to immediately. Because in spiritual warfare, hesitation gives the enemy ground, and that's exactly what they're hoping for when they drop that scent into your life out of nowhere. Smell is one of the most underestimated weapons in spiritual warfare, and witches know that. They understand how powerful it is to reach you through something you can't block out. You can close your eyes so you don't see something. You can cover your ears so you don't hear something. But you can't stop breathing. The air you take in becomes part of you for a moment, and that's where the power lies. When they send a smell, whether it's sulfur, decay, burnt hair, or that suffocating sweetness, they're not just targeting your nose, they're targeting your mind. The goal is simple: disrupt you. If they can disturb your peace, they can weaken your defenses. Every stronghold, every fortress, falls faster when it's rattled from the inside, and your spirit works the same way. A sudden, invasive odor makes you question your surroundings, your safety, and even your sanity. And once you start doubting, you start lowering your guard. That's the real attack, not the smell itself, but the shift in your mental and emotional state that follows. This is psychological warfare in its purest form. They plant a sensory trigger that keeps replaying in your head long after the air is clear. Hours later, you're still thinking about it. Days later, you're still unsettled. And every time that memory surfaces, it brings with it a wave of unease, pulling you back into the emotional state you were in when you first smelled it. That's not an accident, that's strategy. I've seen people carry the memory of one unexplained scent for years. They'll tell you exactly where they were, what time it was, and how it made them feel. That's because smell connects directly to the part of your brain that stores emotion and memory. It bypasses logic entirely. That's why the enemy uses it, because it sticks. And if you don't recognize that tactic, you'll end up carrying a piece of their work with you every time you think about it. The power of smell in witchcraft isn't just about making the air unpleasant. It's about planting fear where you live, where you work, even in your own body. It's about turning a momentary encounter into a lingering presence. And if you let that happen, you're giving them exactly what they wanted in the first place: space in your mind, space in your heart, space in your spirit. That's why you confront it the moment it arrives, not later, not after you've thought about it, right then. Because the faster you break the psychological hold, the less chance it has to grow into something much bigger than a smell. Your senses are not just physical tools, they're part of your built-in defense system. You were created with the ability to detect danger before it ever reaches you, and smell is one of the most primal ways your body warns you. Long before your brain starts analyzing, your nose is already telling you, something's wrong here. In the physical world, that could mean smoke from a fire, gas from a leak, or the scent of something spoiled. But in the spiritual world, that same instinct is just as vital. Unnatural smells tied to witchcraft are not random, they're alarms. They're like tripwires for your spirit, designed to signal that something has shifted in the atmosphere. Too many people rely only on what they can see or hear, but by the time you're seeing or hearing the signs, it's often already deep in motion. Smell gets to you first. It's faster, it's immediate. You don't have to think about smelling. It just happens. That's why it's such a powerful tool for discernment. If you've ever walked into a space and felt unsettled before you could even explain why, chances are your spirit picked up on something through your senses, and your nose was the first to notice. The problem is, we've been trained to dismiss these impressions. We tell ourselves it's just our imagination, or maybe something minor in the environment. But the enemy counts on that dismissal. If he can get you to ignore your own senses, he can get you to lower your guard. I've learned that when a smell shows up that doesn't belong, and especially when it carries an emotional weight with it, it's rarely meaningless. That's your spirit prompting you to look deeper, to pause, to assess before moving forward. I've been in situations where the only warning I got was a whiff of something that shouldn't have been there. No visual cues, no sounds, just that smell, and every single time I paid attention to it, I found out later there was a reason. Whether it was a place that had been spiritually tampered with, or a person carrying something heavy into the room, the smell was the first clue that the atmosphere was not clean. That's why discernment isn't just about prayer, it's about awareness. It's about trusting that God wired you with senses for a reason, and one of those reasons is to detect what the eye can't see yet. When you sharpen that awareness, when you choose to act instead of brushing it off, you start catching things the enemy hoped you'd miss. That's how you protect your peace, your space, and your spirit, by letting your senses work for you instead of against you. And in a battle you can't see, that kind of discernment can be the difference between walking straight into an attack or stopping it at the door. The biggest mistake people make when it comes to unexplained smells is thinking, it's nothing. It'll go away. And yes, it might go away, but that doesn't mean it was nothing. In fact, sometimes the most dangerous signs are the ones that vanish quickly because they leave you questioning if they even happened. That hesitation is exactly what the enemy wants. If he can get you to second, guess yourself, you won't take action. And when you don't take action, you give him time to work. You give him space to settle in. Unexplained odors tied to witchcraft are not just unpleasant. They're warnings. They are the first knock on the door before something tries to come in. If you ignore that knock, don't be surprised when it walks right through. I've seen people overlook that one initial sign only to face a series of strange misfortunes, arguments, illnesses, or oppressive heaviness in their homes days or weeks later. And when they finally put the pieces together, they realize that smell was their chance to stop it before it started. That's why I don't play with this. The moment a smell appears with no logical cause, I confront it. I don't care if it's sulfur, decay, burnt hair, or that fake sweetness. I treat it like it's the beginning of something, because too many times it is. And here's the thing, confronting it doesn't always mean running away. Sometimes it means claiming your ground, speaking life into that space, praying over it, breaking whatever has been sent before it gets comfortable. Your job in that moment is not to explain it away. It's to respond. You don't wait until you're certain, because in spiritual warfare, certainty often comes too late. You act the moment your senses tell you something is wrong. And if you think that sounds extreme, remember this: ignoring the warning doesn't make the danger disappear. It just makes you an easier target. So when that strange, out-of-place smell shows up, even for a second, take it seriously. Investigate it physically, yes, but address it spiritually too. Because you may never know how much trouble you avoided simply because you listened to the very first signal your spirit was trying to give you. And in this kind of battle, that one choice can change everything. And that's the truth most people don't want to hear. Evil rarely shows up with flashing lights and a loud announcement. It creeps in quietly, disguised as something small, something easy to dismiss, a smell you can wave away, a moment you can ignore. But the ones who survive, the ones who stand strong, are the ones who recognize that these small signals are not small at all. They're warnings, they're your early chance to act. Every time you sense one, you're standing at a crossroads. Dismiss it and risk inviting it in, or confront it and take back control of your space, your peace, your life. Your senses are your first line of defense, trust them, because the enemy hopes you won't. And when you stand your ground the moment those signs appear, you send a clear message: you are not welcome here, not now, not ever.